What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astro DFS bringing you a brand new video. Today's video, I am going over the Thursday night showdown between the Baltimore Ravens and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, if you're new to the channel, you haven't seen any of these videos before, I go over both sides. I go over prices, injuries, and then players I like, stuff like that. We just compare DraftKings to Fanduel, the two most popular sites for it, and then just go from there. So if you guys do end up enjoying the video, just leave a like, and if you want to continue to watch these, just hit that sub button so every time I upload, you know. So let's get into it, and I'm going to start off with injuries because injuries leave a lot of opportunity in this slate. So on the Baltimore side, Mark Andrews, Gus Edwards, Rashad Bateman are all questionable. Andrews and Bateman appear to be good to go. Gus Edwards is the only true questionable here for the Baltimore side. They have some other injuries, secondary wise, defensively. There's injuries on both sides, but Baltimore for fantasy, those are your three guys. Expect Andrews, Bateman to play. Gus Edwards is going to be a 50-50. And then Tampa Bay's missing three of their starting secondary. They're missing Winfield, Davis, and Bunting, I believe, are the three that are out. And that just creates opportunity for Baltimore. Offensively, Russell Gage is already out. Cameron Braid is out, and they have a potential to be down to their offensive linemen too, which is worrisome. Julio Jones is questionable. Another game time decision for him. If I had to guess, I would play for Julio, or I would plan for Julio not to play. So let's go over prices now. On FanDuel, you get Lamar, Brady, Evans, Andrews. On DraftKings, you get Lamar, Evans, Brady, Andrews. So the only difference really is Brady and Evans. Just switch, and they're 1,000 on both sites. And then on DraftKings, you get Godwin, Fournette, Edwards, Bateman, Duvernay. FanDuel, you get Fournette, Godwin, Edwards, Bateman, Duvernay. So almost the exact same, except for pretty much Chris Godwin. In FanDuel, you get the kicker, defenses, and then you go Kenyon Drake, Cade Otton, Julio's down there. On DraftKings, once you get past the quarterbacks, Julio maybe, Cade Otton, Rashard White, Kenyon Drake, the defenses. And then on DraftKings, this is the true value when you get below the defenses and kickers. This is what you consider value on DraftKings. So you get Scotty Miller here for Tampa Bay and Brashard Perryman for Tampa Bay. And if Julio is out, look for someone like Scotty Miller to be in. Now it is going to be a rougher matchup for whoever is in for Tampa Bay on that side of the field. But Scotty Miller gets targets. Has never really done much this season. Previous, it looked like he could be a guy for him. Definitely a depth piece. But this season, I mean, that team in general is just playing bizarre. And sorry for clicking. And then you get Rashard Perryman here at 1,200 for Tampa Bay, yet hasn't been used, but has been more reliable for Tampa Bay this season. So I'd expect to get your best value there. Rashard Perryman, if Julio is in fact out, is a value play for me on the Tampa Bay side. Now the Baltimore side, value you get for Justice Hill. If Gus Edwards is out, Justice Hill then becomes the RB2 for that team. Deshaun Jackson seems to make his debut. Don't know what he's going to do, how much he's going to be involved, but he is there. And then I think my favorite, and this is just watching the Mark Andrews injury, is Isaiah Likely. Nothing really crazy at all this season to scream value, but for 1,600, with Baltimore being banged up with Mark Andrews, potentially Gus Edwards. Injuries on the Tampa Bay side. We know Tampa Bay is pretty rough against tight ends. Isaiah Likely is another value play for me at 1,600. Kyle Rudolph's another guy that I would consider a value, meaning a guy that could get points. But as you can see, they pretty much go Cade Otton, and rightfully so. Looks like he could definitely be somebody for him. Other than that, there's not a lot. These are all dart throws, in my opinion. Guys that really haven't been involved at all. So, let's go over the matchups now. So, obviously, as quarterbacks, you get Lamar and Brady. And what do you expect to get out of the quarterbacks? So, Lamar being the highest salaried guy on this slate, you're expecting a lot. Now, let's go and look at his recent games. And for a guy that's supposed to be the high salaried player on the slate, he hasn't really produced much since week 3. Weeks 1 through 3, yeah, like he provides what you, week 2 and 3, you don't expect 40 plus points out of your quarterback in back-to-back weeks, but you go, oh, it's Lamar, he has that capability, rushing the ball. That's where he gets extra points. Recently, you look at his pass attempt against Cleveland, you look at his rushing yards, didn't really seem Lamar-like. Last 2 weeks before that, you get a pretty tough matchup for Lamar. And I'm hoping people don't look past it. You get week 4 Buffalo, tough secondary. Week 5 Cincinnati, yet again, I'd say a tough defense, tough secondary. Week 6 the Giants. Yet again, I'd say the Giants' secondary has been pretty good. And then week 7, Cleveland, 16 attempts. You can't really base. That's pretty much half of what he's done all season. So I won't put that one on him necessarily. But yeah, you're facing a Tampa Bay team who, on paper, looked scary at the beginning of the season. They have not looked good. They're missing a lot of pieces, especially in the secondary. And it's a primetime game. This is where Lamar plays well, his primetime games. I definitely don't have any reason to not play Lamar tonight. He's one of the guys that you want to have. And on Fanduel, you're paying up. DraftKings, you're paying up. So you have to find value. And then we get Tom Brady, who, yes, he's not putting up the greatest fantasy numbers either. You look at his numbers so far, this isn't Tom Brady-like. But then you look at his pass attempts, and since week 3, he's thrown the ball 40-plus times. And again, Baltimore's missing some pieces on defense as well. And with Tampa Bay missing some offensive linemen, I don't think they necessarily run the ball as efficient. I think the pass game is what's going to help them, especially if Baltimore starts out hot. Like Tom Brady really, really wants to prove to everyone that he could still play, in my opinion. With the pass attempts, that's one thing, but the way they've lost games, they should have lost that game against Atlanta and just been on a huge losing streak. But I would lean Lamar in this matchup. I do think Tom Brady has some huge advantages here tonight as well. Chris Godwin being, I think, my favorite receiver on the slate tonight, has a great matchup. Mike Evans is still that guy that gets those red zone targets. Last week, 15 targets against Carolina, gets you 18.6 points. But with the little discount on Chris Godwin, 13 targets, 11.5. He's been pretty consistent with the targets and the yardage. And you just have to factor in he hasn't scored yet. Which, if they're in the red zone, he's probably not the guy they're going to. But there is that opportunity with injuries for missing a missed assignment or something like that for Godwin to get that opportunity. And on Baltimore's side, my wide receiver I'm targeting is Rashad Bateman. Now, granted, he has been banged up. Even when he hasn't looked great since week 2. But yet again, consider who they've faced. It's not been the greatest matchups for him. Rashard Bateman has a great matchup against a backup cornerback tonight. If he's healthy, Rashard Bateman is definitely a guy that I want to play. Now for the tight ends, yes, I want Mark Andrews. I want Cade Otton. Both of those guys are easily playable for me. Andrews getting one of the better matchups in week 8. Like, it's crazy that Tampa Bay's linebackers are bad against tight ends, but they're bad against tight ends. So Mark Andrews, 9,200. Yes, he is up there in price. He is injured, or hurt, I should say. But a really good matchup. It's the same thing of why I mentioned a value on Isaiah Likely, 1,600. Definitely a guy you should get if you're playing a lot of lineups tonight. And then Cade Otton, you get at a discount. No Cameron Brate. Kyle Rudolph, barely been involved. He's been a guy that they've been trying to get the ball to more. 15 targets in his last 3 games. And his yardage, I mean, I'd say is pretty consistent. Probably around 40 yards a game. In Baltimore, yet another team that hasn't been great against tight ends. They're not terrible against tight ends either. But Patrick Queen does allow a lot of catches per targets to him. So both those tight ends. And then we talk running backs. So Leonard Fournette, you look at what he's got rushing attempts lately. In his last 5 games, he's had 1 game with 20 plus rushing attempts, which is scary. But his targets have been there too. 6 targets, 7 targets, 11 targets, 6, and then 3 last week against Carolina, which, I mean, when you're getting beat that bad, you're probably not going to throw to the running back, especially at Leonard Fournette. Now, Rashard White, on the other hand, is probably a guy that you'd use more, just a little more elusive, but he is getting those attempts. For the $4,800 price that you're paying for him, though, with these points, I don't know if I necessarily like Rashard White, like Leonard Fournette. I mean, Godwin is there. You pay down for Bateman. Like, it's going to be pretty hard to play the wide receivers tonight and someone like Leonard Fournette. You have to be fading a Mark Andrews, a Chris Godwin, one of the quarterbacks, if not both, in order to afford Leonard Fournette. And he has to pay off. Which, granted, I mean, you look at some of his numbers and he's paid off a few weeks. But for the 8,800, I'd probably go Mark Andrews. I'd probably go Chris Godwin. I'd probably go Rashard Bateman. Now, on the Baltimore side, I mentioned Gus Edwards here. Was limited. Had a really good week last week, I guess. No targets. 66 yards on 16 attempts. Only 4.1 yards. But he gets the 2 touchdowns. You take those 2 touchdowns away, though, you're getting Gus Edwards getting 6.6 points. It doesn't sound that great. The price that you're paying for him, $7,600. Injury news, we're still going to wait tonight to see what that does. Kenyon Drake at $4,600 seems like a better play to me. Now, it's not because he gets more volume. I mean, 11 for 5, 1 target. But the price that you're paying, I'd lean Kenyon Drake over Gus Edwards tonight for a value play. Now, kickers, I think both kickers are in play. Both kickers have been, I mean, Justin Tucker, one of the greatest kickers ever. And Ryan Suckup has been pretty efficient this year for what he's had to do. We know Tampa Bay struggled scoring points. Ryan Suckup, this could be a game where he gets those opportunities. Tampa Bay just can't close it out. If Baltimore is scoring, I mean, maybe they don't. But, I mean, Justin Tucker, the fantasy points he consistently puts out is definitely a value. Now he is more expensive than both the Tampa Bay kicker and defense. But for rightfully so. I mean, the guy is averaging 10 fantasy points a game as a kicker. That's crazy. Now, some kickers do, but Justin Tucker, I mean, they are not afraid to use him. As you can see, his longest field goals every game, they're not afraid to use him from distance. They trust him. So, that's basically it, guys. I mean, there are value plays, essentially guys that you could plug in your lineup. Your Demarcus Robinson, I'm sorry, Justin Hill, I mentioned, Deshaun Jackson, Richard. Like, there are guys that you could put in, but as far as guys that I really like and guys that I want to get in my lineup, those are my guys for tonight. On Fanduel, and I'm sorry for neglecting Fanduel, and I apologize, but getting, like, a Chris Godwin up here, Justin Tucker at 95 is great. Kate Otten at 8 is value. Isaiah Likely at 7 is definitely value for me. Rashard Perriman at 6K. Like, there are opportunities to take advantage of this. So, do with that as you wish. Now, I've been trying to end the video just trying to do a lineup, see what we can make out, and see what we could do. So we will try and see what we can come up with. So we like Kate Otten. I really like Justin Tucker tonight. That leaves us at 10-2. Chris Godwin is someone that I really want to get. Lamar is someone I really want to get. Bateman is another name. We're left 8,700. This is an example of just trying to get creative. We don't have Mike Evans. We don't have Brady. And then we don't end up with Andrews. So probably some maneuvering, stuff like that to get out of the way. Try to switch it up and see if we can get the discount and put Bateman in instead of Godwin. So let's put Godwin in. Let's put Lamar in. Kate Otten. Let's put Justin Tucker. And we're left with 9,700. And that gets us almost to Brady, but allows us to get to Mark Andrews for 4-2 for tonight. That's DraftKings. Let's go to Fanduel and let's see what we can do on Fanduel. So, Kate Otten. We want Kate Otten in there. We want Justin Tucker in there as well. We're going to MVP Lamar. I want to get Chris Godwin. And I could get Rashad Bateman. It's a pretty good lineup. Now, let's say I don't want Kate Otten. Let's say I want Kenyon Drake, or let's say I want Suckup. I have that opportunity. Let's put Cade back in. Let's take Justin Tucker out. What does that leave us with there? Yeah, we're going Justin Tucker. That's the best thing I can come up with off the top of my head. So, hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I will see you in the next one.